Localization fund has often come up, and people have asked the question.
The Newsroom, Mondays 6:15 to 7 p.m. on your number one talk station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Last week, Nigerians woke up to a shock when the DSS issued an ultimatum to the NNPC and oil marketers to end the petrol scarcity. Well, for weeks now, the petrol scarcity has crippled business activities in some cities and forced a lot of Nigerians to spend hours at petrol stations. Has the situation improved? Does the DSS actually have the rights to issue the threat? Elsewhere, days after the release of the redesigned Naira notes by the CBN, some people are anticipating getting to fill the new notes. However, the new CBN withdrawal policy is giving others nightmares. Is Nigeria really ready for a cashless system? Can businesses handle it? These issues will get us talking today as we bid you welcome to another bumper package of the Newsroom. It's been 2 weeks of break as a result of the ongoing FIFA 2022 World Cup, but we are back with the Newsroom. Ufuoma Egbamuno is my name. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. Yes, I'll be doing the show all alone today, but hopefully we've got two wonderful gentlemen who know their onions, who will be telling us or giving us insights into the big issues we have for today. Well, I'm sure last week Thursday you were shocked when you woke up and heard the news, as we read it right here on Nigeria Info, that of course the DSS issued a 48-hour ultimatum to the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited as well as oil marketers to make petrol available for Nigerians. Peter Funanya, who is the DSS spokesperson, actually gave the directive in Abuja. That's after the 3-hour or thereabouts meeting the DSS actually had with, of course, stakeholders in the petrol sector. And on today's edition of the show, I'll be talking to someone who knows it. I wouldn't say little, who knows almost everything that has to do with the DSS and maybe why they decided to give that threat after meeting with the NNPC and oil marketers. He is former DSS director, Mr. Jofor, who's joining us on the Newsroom this evening. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the Newsroom.
Thank you and good evening.
And thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule to actually speak to us right here.
Thank you.
All right, quickly, let's get into the thick of the action. My first question to you would be, what did you think about, because it felt a little strange. Now, I know that the DSS spokesperson, Mr. Funaya, said, that they had to get into the situation because the scarcity of petrol was becoming a national security threat. Now, but just give us an insight into why all of a sudden, the petrol scarcity became a national security threat and why the DSS decided to wade in.
Well, just like the spokesperson said, there are issues bordering on threats to national security. If the SSS had investigated and established the cause of the scarcity and decided to give an advice to the stakeholders, I think it's only proper. It wasn't a threat, like you said in your, but for those of us in Abuja, immediately after the 48 hours, I was surprised too that the queues started fading away, and the situation is normalizing here, even though it's not completely, but it's normalizing, and that shows that the SSS had an inkling. And immediately after that, the NNPC also said that they released 1.9 billion liters. So why did they not release this before this time? So I believe that what the SSS was doing was to preempt a national security, because if it had continued, unabated, and we are coming into festive period, if it had continued unabated, maybe one day, someday, people might go to the street. So I believe that's a major threat to national security, and that is why the SSS has to take the initiative to preempt it. And I believe that if it's not, checked, also, if it exists, again, I think some people should be invited to question it, because there's so much fraud in the oil sector. So I think they have more information than what we are seeing, and that is why they are also trying to preempt this thing.
Okay, so in your thoughts, it was actually a preemptive.
Yeah, exactly, preemptive action. To forestall any likely threat or breakdown to law and order.
Now you've talked about the situation in Abuja, that it's easing off. It's not totally out, it's easing off. So we can safely conclude that the ultimatum, let me not call it threat now, the ultimatum given to the oil marketers as well as the NNPC has basically worked.
Well, exactly. It's working, but I think it has to ease off, because very soon a lot of people will be going on for major travels for the festive period, end of year, and Christmas. So I think the efforts have to be sustained, by the security agencies to ensure that the situation normalizes.
Okay, so let's talk about so some analysts have argued, whether or not the DSS even has the constitutional right, to actually do that. I would like to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that the DSS actually, has that constitutional right, to go about it the way they have gone about it?
Yes, exactly. That's the statutory functions of the SSS. Issues bordering on crimes against the state. Issues bordering on crimes against the state. When there's complete breakdown of law and order, and you expect the SSS to, the SSS actually hardly makes a public pronouncement. But when they come to make public, that the situation is serious. So it's actually in their schedule or statutory responsibility to preempt any act likely to cause a breach of the peace or national security. You remember what happened during the oil subsidy issue when we talked about what do they call it?
Occupy Nigeria 12 years ago.
Occupy Nigeria, exactly. Occupy Nigeria and NSAS. Those are major issues bordering on national security. So if this preemptive action is not taken, it might result to that, and I think that's why the SSS took the initiative, and the stakeholders also are complying and ensuring that the situation normalizes.
Okay. Let me take you up on this question. I'd like to get your thoughts. Popular constitutional lawyer Femi Falana, earlier a couple of days ago on TV, did say that the ultimatum given by the DSS is, quote, an empty threat. What would be your reaction to that?
Well, I wouldn't want to join issues with the leadership. I'm a lawyer, I'm a senior colleague at the bar, but again, like we said when we started, it wasn't actually a threat. It was kind of advisory to the major stakeholders to ensure that the situation stabilizes. So I don't see it as a threat. So the issue of whether it's an empty threat, it does not even arise.
All right. Just before I let you go, away from these petrol issues, it's not every day that we have the opportunity to talk to you. But I'd like to get your thoughts on the continuous attack, on INEC offices across the country. Earlier today, there was just another attack. Of course, thank goodness for the security forces. They were able to repel it and not much damage was done. But do you... Yes, INEC has repeatedly said that elections will go on irrespective of these attacks. But do you think that if this continues the way it is, it might, one way or the other, stop the elections next year?
I don't see it stopping the election. I think it was on the front page of Telegraph last week or over the weekend, where I granted the interview on this issue of burning down. We are going to expect more. Because the issue is that politicians, Nigerian politicians, they don't like doing things the right way. They just want to manipulate the process. It's becoming almost impossible and very difficult for them to manipulate the electoral process because of the machines, the new machines we are using, PGC and Beavers, and it becomes almost impossible for them to manipulate. So we are going to expect not only attacks on INEC facilities, to disfranchise the opponents, especially in areas where they believe they have stronghold or major support. The tendency for them to go to those areas to burn down or even go to the point of attacking opponents. We are going to expect more of that because I'm not a pessimist, but I believe that we're going to witness more violence as the election approaches and as campaign goes on. You can see reports from states, some people not align other political parties, opponents to possibly campaign in their areas, attack on party supporters, and all. We are going to expect some of these things coming up. But I believe that our security agencies, like the Chief of the Defense Staff, had also said last week in the press interview that they are under pressure to compromise the process. And the president, from his body language, is prepared to deliver and give Nigerians credible elections. So their politicians are becoming frustrated and jittery, so they want to use other means. And the only means they have now is which is what they were using before, vote buying. But with the new fiscal policy from the central bank controlling cash, it's almost going to be almost impossible for them to be carrying cash about. But Nigerian politicians, they must look for a way out. I'm also aware that some of them are even trying to make direct transfer to voters. But again, for me, that is more convenient than going to the polling booth to wait for people to vote and you show your vote, collect your money. Collect the money. The money is not their own. They are only making investment. Collect their money if you must. And vote your conscience. That's the only way we can have a credible election and get leaders that will be accountable to the people. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mike Ejiofor, for joining us on the newsroom this evening.
Thank you.
All right, we have been speaking with the former DSS director, Mike Ejiofor, and of course we moved a little bit from the issues concerning petrol and scarcity. It's been a nightmare, I must say, for a lot of Nigerians, especially right here in Lagos. Mr. Mike talked about the issue in Abuja. Abuja has been, I think it's about 3 or 4 months now, constantly that Abuja has had petrol scarcity issues. Whatever is the cause, I honestly do not know. But like he told us, we're beginning to see, the petrol scarcity ease off in the Federal Capital Territory. Hopefully, that would also be the case right here in Lagos, because it's been a nightmare for a lot of commuters. People standing on the road, people who even have had to, use private cabs. You've seen, the monies you pay for cabs increase. In fact, some of them will even tell you, what, let's try and they make some little money for themselves and not have the cab apps themselves, get to take that little percentage. It's been crazy. It's been really crazy. That's for the middle class people who can afford cabs. The people who stand on the road jumping, you're not even seeing the bus itself. I've had situations where a few of my reporters will send messages and say, we have not seen bus to come to the office, so we've been standing at the bus stop for 1 hour 30 minutes, and it's really not been palatable. So hopefully we hope that this threat, let me not call it, ultimatum, hopefully, would get us to where we want to be. Quickly, guys, let's move on to our final topic for today, which has to do with the issue that almost all of you have been talking about, especially for those of us who are POS operators. It might not be so popular right here in Lagos, but it seems outside of Lagos. Okay, let me talk particularly about where I know. In Port Harcourt, it feels like nobody goes to the ATM anymore. Apparently, nobody goes to the ATM anymore because, maybe long queues in the ATM and all that. Everybody just goes to a POS operator by the streets, by the corner of the road, and withdraw money and pay the extra 100 naira or 200 naira that they charge for each withdrawals. But that looks like it might be a bit of a challenge with the new CBN's directive to commercial banks and financial institutions limiting daily ATM withdrawals to 20,000 naira. Also, for individuals and organizations, the weekly limit is 100,000 individuals, 500,000 for corporate organizations. And over the last 4-5 days, this conversation has got a lot of persons talking. Yes. The Senate and the House of Reps, the Senate is supposed to be tomorrow. They're supposed to have plenary tomorrow, and they've invited Godwin Emefiele, the central bank governor, to actually talk about this. The House of Reps themselves have expressed their concerns over the new policy. Godwin Emefiele met with the president, Muhammadu Buhari, last week, and he suggested that maybe, just maybe, there might be some, corrections or adjustments, rather, to the limit with which people can withdraw. But he says that this policy has come to stay. What exactly is the reason for this policy? Let's talk, because I've got the regional editor of Business Day newspaper, who is a business analyst, Mr. Ignatius Chukwu, joining us on Nigeria Info right now. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the newsroom on Nigeria Info Lagos. Hello. Okay, we were unable to get that connection. Try to get that one as quickly as possible. But guys, I was talking about the fact that the guys who operate POS might have issues. Businesses might be affected. You can only withdraw 20,000 per day using the ATM. The plan by the CBN, according to them, is to help me also to ensure that the cashless policy we have, get on track. Well, it does look like I've been able to get my guest on the show. Yes, have I? Okay, I've got, like I did tell you, the regional editor of Business Day, Business. Very good.
Good evening.
Yes, welcome. This is the new Nigeria Info Lagos. Quickly, let's start by asking you what's your thoughts on this new CBN policy. When you heard it, what were your initial reactions? And of course, days after, how do you look at it?
Well, I've said time with that number that when I heard it, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised because I was still a reporter when we covered the change of currency in 1984. And when the same man took over, the first policy he launched was a financial policy, a fiscal policy, or currency policy. No, not currency, it was a fiscal policy where he said they created TSA. TSA was actually a policy that had been announced earlier before that, but it was given life. And therefore, it curtailed the ability of parastatals or government of agencies to access money that had been lodged into agency accounts or government accounts. So if government operatives are off CBN, so that gave me signal that 984 may repeat one day before this man goes. So when I had it, I was not surprised. Then I told people when it happened that they had not given us the entire policy resolution. That what they were telling us that time, I called it Part A or Part 1.
You mean when the redesigning of the notes, right?
When the policy was announced.
Okay.
I told people around me that policy was only Part A, that wait for Part B.
So you saw it come.
And now we are exactly at Part B. If we guide collecting the money in, and that policy will be rolled out when it's time to collect that your money back, then you will hear another policy. And then we have had it.
So in general, how would you rate this policy? Do you think that it is, like the CBN governor says, one that would help Nigeria's economy, which, well, almost all of us know is not where it should be?
Anyway, what I do is to understand and interpret policies. I don't vote for policies, good or bad. I interpret it.
Okay.
So that those who will listen will now decide to do the voting. For instance, when the U.S. wanted to fight terrorism after 9/11, I hope we remember that the first policy they rolled out was a fiscal policy instead of a security policy. And that policy said, follow the money. They believe that terrorism cannot go far without money. And therefore, terrorism is an industry. There are people who fund it and distribute them. There are others who move things from point B and disappear. I hope we remember that just today, they are suing the man who made the bomb with which they bombed the Lockerbie bombing, the UK bombing that killed many Americans.
In 1988.
We know that about 20 years after, 30 years after, the person who made the bomb is just showing up or is just being taken to court. So you see, the first people you see in terrorism are the soldiers, the hitmen. So some do suicide bombing, some they are usually arrested. But there are people who aided in armory. The armorers are there. After the armorers, there are the financiers, there are the informants. So it's an industry. People play at different segments of the value chain. And therefore, money is a dominant part that links all these segments I have mentioned. The tape, the gum, the white that binds all of them are money. There's some policy that says, watch money, watch movement money. So as we speak today, the U.S. government doesn't care whether the money you are moving around the world is their money or not their money. They believe that another man's money can play a role in bombing America. So they want to watch every money moving everywhere in the world. And therefore, when this policy came out, something told me that, are you sure this policy is not more of security policy than fiscal policy? But I left it like that. But the next thing that happened is that the first government agency and the only government agency that has been speaking in support, giving support to CBN is EFCC. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
I'm following your logic.
So EFCC suddenly, because a very important partner in this matter, I leave them. The third thing that you may think about if you're an analyst is that a group called the Mieti Allah said, please, our money is in the forest, so you're also following me? If you connect the dots and all these things, you will begin to, I begin to feel that, are you sure this policy is not targeting insecurity, terrorism, and above all, vote buying and election rigging mechanisms? So, based on that, I feel that I have to mind how to comment, because any government that wants to fight terrorism usually rolls out what looks like a wicked money policy, and from there while everybody is analyzing the economic significance of the policy, maybe the government will be achieving another thing on the ground. So that's how I see it. But talking about the economy, I know that this policy is going to, 1984 is going to happen, because when all this money moves into the central bank and the new policy says you don't release the money anyhow, it means that people will have money, but the way they access that money will be a little bit restricted. Although in 1984 there was no transfer, there was only one window of getting your money out, and that was queuing at the counter. I am one of those who used to queue at the counter. They will be rationing the money. They will give you small. They give you small. It reminded me of after the Civil War. Everybody was asked to bring all his money. They gave you 20 pounds. So it's not the first time a Nigerian will have money and the government will decide how much that can be given to him at a particular time. So it's not the first time, and therefore I expect a naira squeeze, a currency squeeze, not as harsh as 1984, due to the fact that time it was only one window. But now, apart from cash window, you have transfer window and other windows you can use. But what I do know is that there will be a little some squeeze. Transfer of money, if you check, our network is bad, is poor, and sometimes USSD, that USSD platform, sometimes you send money to somebody, the person says he has not got it, and he has been debited. So you now need to go to bank to reconcile whether the person has got it or not. So I am thinking that with the USSD platform being very, very inefficient, and other forms of transfer will require your bank app to be efficient with the data and the network at all times. There will be some difficulties, but by and large, I expect a squeeze in the economy and some early crisis. Then I expect it to normalize. During which time prices may come down, not because forces of demand and supply are not at work, but because the liquidity ratio, the cash at hand, will be a little bit tough. So some people will have to sell their items anyhow, not minding whether there's profit or not, just to touch some money. Thank you.
Okay, great historical explanation. In 1984, I was just a 4-year-old. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. But it's great that, you've given myself and everyone who's listening some bit of historical context to this. But you touched on vote buying. Just in a few seconds, do you think that this policy will be able to stop that ahead of next year's elections?
Okay, from my point of view, not stop, but I think that cash trunk. Now, if you kept 2 billion to buy votes and they say you must bring the money to the bank, if you refuse to take it there, the money will cease to be a legal tender by end of January next year. And you humbly go and submit it, then they will now regulate how you withdraw cash, which means you'll be left with a transfer. Then, if on the eve of an election you want to share 2 billion or share 1 billion to about 30,000 persons, which finger will you use to transfer 10,000, 5,000?
But Mr. Ignatius,
I foresee that it will not be so easy. I'm not saying it will eliminate it.
Okay, I was just about to tell you that some would argue with you and say that Nigerian politicians always find a way. They would have cronies, possibly in. This is not an accusation at bank officials, but you have friends in banks who would help you possibly cut corners to get some of these monies out. Don't you think?
Yes, I think that. I said it when this policy broke out. I said that over the years, EFCC work, all the fight against corruption has disclosed a very clear line of relationship. In all the things any politician that has been taken to court, you will see a direct offense by a bank. And as a reporter, as someone covering business, as somebody covering economic crime over time, this is a clear pattern. So it means that all the rules government will put, and when the ordinary Nigerian goes to bank, those rules will apply. But the moment they want to move illegal money, all those rules will go to sleep. So who do they want us to start calling names? We can start calling names, but we won't call. Then Nigerians know the names of those who went to a bank. A bank became, and when you meet one bank manager and discuss with him, he can get you 3, 4, 5 other banks that help in doing this. The spread inside doesn't look as the only bank A that did it with you. We have been reading this, we have been reporting it, so it's there. So we don't know whether they will not connive with banks, and at night, bullion vans will move from the same bank that they refuse to give you the money, and they give it. I don't know whether it will happen, but Nigerian politicians can get their way through.
Okay, well, let's move away from that aspect and talk about, the average Nigerian, on the streets listening to Nigeria Info right now. The issue of POS operators, it's become, in fact, my wife doesn't, I can't remember the last time my wife went to a bank to withdraw money. She always just goes to the POS operator by my street, to withdraw money that she uses in the house. There's the fear that might go extinct, and it might hurt a lot of these small businesses across the country. What do you say to that?
It may hurt them, because from the beginning, I've been thinking about middlemen in the cash movement spectrum. And middlemen include banks, they include community women who are doing BAM. BAM in our place is people who are doing small contribution. Whereas at December, they all withdraw it. So the local treasurer is supposed to have their money, maybe up to 300,000, 400,000, they share. And so I'm looking at it. Small-scale cash calculators, small-scale cash middlemen like POS people. So they have raised alarm. But what is obvious is that the groups that have obvious case like POS people and they are in association, I think if they make their request or place a concern, I believe in the ability of the CBN to look at them not as the agents of sabotage, but people who do retail cash businesses with the communities. Not only your wife. My own wife doesn't go to bank. She doesn't even go to the POS person. Once she transfers money, the POS is very glad to, the POS man is very glad to run and knock at the door and say, Mommy, see your money.
See your money.
So you see that the bank is now going to homes instead of homes going to bank.
True that.
So that role is very critical and important. But what I do know is that when the POS system was rolled out, most of the mega agents, there's a name they gave the group that got the license. Those the licenses went to former, many bank managers or bank officials resigned and opened it. And recruited the POS you see. The ones you see, they're not the real owners. So those owners have attended conferences where they invited them for training. They are understood that they have categories. Most of the owners are S-Bank workers. So when they catch it for an area, they now license their own agents who now do this. So any complaint they have, they report to the owners. The owners have an efficient mechanism of taking the matter back
to the banks itself.
Because they are seasoned bank persons.
Wow.
So I think they will listen to them.
Okay, this is eye-opening. To be very honest, I never knew, it was in that direction. Maybe we would, on another day, have this conversation as a separate issue. But quickly, just in a minute, do you think that Nigeria is really ready for a cashless policy?
Well, the cashless policy has been drummed to our ears since 15 years now. So Nigeria will never be ready. So there's no time Nigeria will be ready. A Nigerian will never be ready until the day the law blocks him as they are going to block us. So don't wait for the day Nigerians will be ready. If he extend the PVC collection 10 times, we will never be ready.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much, Mr. Ignatius, for joining us on the newsroom this evening.
Thank you, my dear.
All right, so that was the regional editor of Business Day newspaper, Mr. Ignatius Chukwu. Very, very wonderful journalist. You know, every time I talk to him, I always learn something new. And it was great actually having him join us on the show. Not so much time for us to actually take calls or read your messages, but thank you very much, people. Thank you for listening. Hopefully we will be back again, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or editions of this show. We will be doing a lot of leadership conversations even as we get set for the 2023 general elections. And on behalf of the newsroom, the team of producers, of course, the lead producer today, Emmanuel Onwoka, who's actually sitting by my side here, and of course, the rest of the team, would say thank you very much for listening. The newsroom will be back next week, Monday, from 15 minutes past 6 o'clock. Until then, have yourselves a wonderful evening. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno.